What's up, everybody? Welcome to SWAT MMA, where we're smoking weed and we're talking mixed martial arts. This is episode number 110. I'm Jarrod here with Paul.
What up?
Coming to you from the fight capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. Today, we're going to be smoking and talking about the events of the latest UFC Fight Night, which saw Darren Till take on Derek Brunson at 185 pounds, which will lead into a conversation. Was Darren Till overrated? We're going to also talk about some unfortunate events involving UFC Hall of Famer Stefan Bonnar. We're going to be discussing the new independent Ariel Helwani, who has just been unleashed on the airwaves as of late. But before we dive into all that action, grab your weed, fire it up, and let's get into the weed of the week.
Smoke weed every day.
This week, my friend, we are smoking on one kind of flower and one kind of concentrate in your vape. I always want to say vape co. In your puff co, right there you have got, what, some bubble gum?
Yeah, bubblegum distillate.
A bubblegum distillate. That's an unknown cross with Indian bubblegum. Not a lot of genetic info on that. We do have a new flower this week as well. We're smoking on some horchata, which is a cross of jet fuel gelato with gelato 47, which is also called mochi gelato. Break those two down a little bit. Jet fuel gelato is high octane crossed with jet fuel, which we've smoked jet fuel a few times on here. Not one of your favorites. I remember it for that reason.
Yeah.
High octane is one I haven't ever smoked before. Mochi gelato is sunset sherbet crossed with thin mint Girl Scout cookies, which we've discussed at length on here as being a phenotype of GSC. And it's interesting to me that this breed or this strain sees the sunset sherbet in both the mochi gelato genetics, and then if we go back to the jet fuel gelato and we look at high octane, that is sunset sherbet crossed with octane. So it kind of makes its way from both sides there. Overall, though, it's a pretty good strain. It's pretty nicely flavored.
We'll see.
Pretty beautifully colored. And I'm excited to fire up this blunt, or not blunt. I had blunts on the brain today because you were talking about them earlier.
Yeah, I've been smoking a lot of blunts lately.
I couldn't hear you.
Been smoking a lot of blunts lately.
Yeah, I can tell by your voice. What are you doing, a blunt a day?
Sure.
Yeah, that's not good, bro.
We'll stay. It's just one.
All that tobacco is not good for your lungs.
Yeah, but it's definitely. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but it is kind of a better high, brother.
I know, man. I've smoked my share of blunts, but I haven't since I got a Backwoods.
Yeah, I like Backwoods. Backwoods are my favorite, actually.
Yeah, and for those of you listening who might not know what that is, it's a nice fat-sized tobacco leaf.
Yeah.
And then it's usually dipped in like some keef on the outside as well.
Yeah.
Are
you talking about those Backwoods? Oh,
yeah,
those are dope
those
too.
Are the dipped.
I'm just talking about like Backwoods in general.
Well, the last one I got was a Backwoods dipped in keef.
Oh yeah.
So it's
those
like it's like soaked in a honey concentrate and then rolled in keef.
Mm-hmm.
It's ridiculously expensive. And then I smoked the
they're
whole
like
thing
$100.
myself, and it wasn't.
Oh damn! You smoked the whole thing by yourself, huh?
Yeah.
See, I'm a social smoker.
I could handle the weed. Well, I was by myself. I was like, "Fuck it, I'm gonna smoke this guy."
Yeah.
The weed wasn't a problem. It was smoking that much tobacco leaf in one sitting.
Yeah, it was rough, huh?
Oh man, yeah. It made my stomach all fucked up.
Yeah, I'm more of a social smoker. Like, not that I don't smoke by myself. Obviously, I smoke a lot, so I'm kind of smoking all the time. But like, if I'll go like knock on my roommate's door and be like, "Hey, dude, smoke this shit with me," because I don't like smoking by myself.
Right. Well,
you little lonely smoker, you.
It's just me and my kid living here. I'm not gonna roll it. Hey,
come on down.
She smoked this blunt with Dad. Yeah, that's not happening. So.
That's funny.
But yeah, so I haven't smoked a blunt in like a friggin'
minute, huh?
Dude, it was before.
It was probably the last
so
blunt.
2019.
We were smoking those blunts.
Yeah, well, you know where I got the Backwoods from because you were getting them those dipped ones at that time too, from our friend, and so it was then. That was the last shit. Yeah,
and that was like a minute ago.
Yeah, it was 2019.
Damn, that long.
Doesn't seem that long because 2020 is
2020
flown
was
by.
Nothing. Yeah.
And 2021 has been a blink.
Yeah.
Can you believe it's September 2021,
No,
dog?
I can't. still feels ridiculous.
Dude, I still feel like it should be like March 2020.
Yeah.
I'm still reeling from all that.
Yeah, for real.
Hell.
Shit's crazy.
Anyways, off the serious topics, we hope wherever you are, folks, that if you are listening and like to indulge in the cannabis, that you're smoking something delicious, and
Light the
hopefully
fuck
legal
up.
as well. We're gonna fire up this fucking joint of this horchata here, and we're gonna start off the show talking about a subject that has been constantly on the show since he left ESPN, and that is Ariel Helwani,
Yeah.
who is back in the news here of late for a slightly different reason. Why don't you kind of refresh dating back to the UFC 200
Yeah.
while I get this fired up?
So
us?
while you fire that up, so let's take a little step back. So this all kind of stems from the night of UFC 199, where Ariel Helwani released the news that Brock Lesnar was returning to the UFC before the UFC could drop this promo they did where Brock came back and all this shit. So with that being said, since then, like, there's been a real beef with Ariel and Dana / the UFC.
Yeah, well, Dana got really butthurt over that whole
Yeah.
thing. Like, just because he released it, what, a day or two before they did?
No, I
'Cause
think it was hours before.
for people who are unaware of, like, that's a big deal for many a year when Brock was coming back, right? We used to
Yeah.
get teased, right? How many years did we get teased of a Lesnar return?
Still happens this day.
So he winds up banning Ariel and revoking his press credentials for UFC over that, right?
Yeah, it didn't stand very long.
Didn't stand. Ariel got really upset. This is the pre-ESPN days.
Yeah.
So Ariel had the MMA fighting .com. He was on there, and he had the
Boys
MMA
back.
Hour. And I remember he had a big public.
Yeah.
He basically cried on the air, and he caught some flack from that. But he's an emotional dude, so he cries on the air over the whole thing.
Yeah.
And there was so much backlash that basically Dana had to give him his press credentials back. And then, since then, of course, we've detailed some of the things that have gone on between him and Dana on prior episodes about how he had to leave the ESPN offices or the sets when Dana would come through and et cetera. So we won't rehash all
couldn't
that.
be in his couldn't be in his path of sight. Like, what the fuck?
But this is all getting rehashed now for what? For two basic reasons. Number one being now that Ariel is free of the ESPN contract, he can speak his mind publicly a lot
Independent
more.
Helwani.
As he's now being referred to, yes. And Joe Rogan also on his podcast was explaining the situation to someone else, correct?
Yeah.
Which kind of then got picked
Sparked
up by
it.
Brendan Schaub, who kind of parroted what Joe said, right?
Yeah, because that's kind of what Brendan does. You know, they're close friends. They talk all the time, so they share a lot of similar views. And then also it does. This is where things get muddy though, because a lot of, I think, even any of this all kind of comes with where everyone's royalty. Loyalty.
Let's back up just a little bit and tell people what Joe Rogan said. Like, so Ariel does this, whatever, this is a few years ago. Then Joe Rogan's rehashing this whole scenario to someone else, and he basically takes the UFC side and says that the UFC is a private company who had a private thing going on with an athlete, and they wanted to release their own. And Ariel Helwani had a, quote, mole inside who gave him this private company's information. And that wasn't really a news story because they're, again, private. And instead it was somehow a scandalous thing to do.
It was weird how he said it too, because the way he kind of worded it was almost that Brock Lesnar fighting is not a big enough news story to break.
Yeah, he said it wasn't really a story. Like somebody got hurt or somebody did something bad. We're paraphrasing his statements here, but these are all things you can listen to yourself, which was very weird.
It was a weird way to look at it, I thought.
And the whole premise on somehow the company being private so you can't release this information, look, that makes no sense.
Yeah, we're talking about sports here. He's a sports reporter.
Helwani,
sports reporters do.
Brendan Schaub comes back out and parrots this, along with the fact that after the Showtime broadcast of the Jake Paul Tyrone Woodley fight, which they were both on, he's talking about that and says that he also hears that Helwani is very hard to work with.
Well, he said, it was weird because the first one, the Logan Paul one, was one that Brendan was on, and then this last one, Helwani was kind of in the same role that Brendan was on that one. and he did his own fight companion instead, and basically, just said that he's only on the broadcast because Brendan decided not to be on the broadcast for that fight, and that he's heard that from people that he's a nightmare to work with and all this shit.
And then he parrots the whole
Yeah.
UFC 200 thing. And now Helwani has fired back saying, quote, what Joe Rogan has spewed is 100% false. What Brendan Schaub has then parroted is 1,000% false. Rogan sources Dana White. Brendan sources Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
And then he went on in his podcast to really berate both of them. And then he said that Brendan called him and apologized, but basically that he would not accept the apology until Brendan went on air on his podcast
And said he was.
and said it. And then he threw a bunch of kind of oddball shots at Schaub's like listening audience and claimed that his was 10 times bigger.
Well,
Some
here's the
things
thing.
I think he's just a little butthurt and trying to flex, which is not true. You can't. Brendan's an accomplished podcaster
Absolutely.
at this point. I mean,
Well,
come on.
that's the thing too. Is like, that's why it's kind of why I've listened to him on a couple different people's shows. Because like he went on like Pat McAfee's show and talked about it. He talked about it with Aljamain Sterling on his own show, and he talked about it like in a few other places, right? And I kind of got a different vibe from him in every single different interview. Like it was like when he was like with Aljo, it was him trying to like convince his friend that those guys were wrong, type of deal. Is how I felt.
Okay.
Whereas like when he was on Pat McAfee's show, he I think he's like almost to the point where he's talked about it too much. He feels like or something, because then he was like, it's not that I don't like Brendan. It's not even that I have an issue with Brendan. I have zero issues with Brendan. He just like and kind of laid out their whole. He's like, we don't know each other. We don't run in the same circles. All this shit.
Right.
So I just don't understand why he's talking shit about me. And I kind of agree with that. Like I don't know. There's enough room in the media space for everybody. There's really no reason anybody should like go out slandering each other like for shit like that.
Well, so Paul, let's you and me discuss the crux of the story here, the real nitty gritty. What Ariel did.
Real quick
Was
though, one
it
thing I do want to
reporting-
add into it, because this all does
okay,
all
okay.
does blend in. Brendan Schaub is also very close with Luke Thomas, who Ariel and him had issues with
Yeah, they have a
booking,
publicized beef.
beef about bookings and shit like that. And so maybe Brendan's also taking a little bit of that information that Luke has maybe spewed at him about Ariel in the past and using that to form his opinion as well.
Yeah, I don't think that it's any surprise to anyone or shocking to say that I don't believe Luke Thomas is a fan of Ariel's at all. I think that's pretty public.
Yeah.
But yeah, that could be if Brendan's only sources are Joe, who's going to definitely take Dana's side, and Luke, who's not going to be on Ariel's side either. Because Brendan Schaub doesn't strike me as the type of individual that would be seeking to publicly harm Ariel Helwani. Brendan Schaub's like a really nice guy.
Yeah, he is. That's why I don't understand this whole
type of
story.
dude.
Yeah, but he also is a very he is notorious shit talker. He just is on his fucking he's on and in front of a camera so fucking often that he sometimes some of the shit he says you're like, what the fuck are you even talking about, Brendan?
Absolutely.
And he admits it himself that he's that way.
Yeah, I've heard him say similar. But so let's circle back around to the real base of the story was because what Dana's mad about was that he thinks it wasn't news. Joe Rogan's basic argument, parroted again by Brendan, is that it wasn't a news story. So let's circle back to it.
It is, though.
It is. I agree. It's 100% a news story.
It is, because it's the same news story as if, let's just take it into like another context as far as like another sport. Let's say Ian Rappaport, he's the biggest sport NFL reporter, and he has sources in all 32 teams. Like,
of course,
whether you want to call them moles or whatever the fuck.
Mole is a disparaging way to name a source.
Sources, yeah. So
standard practice.
Let's just say somebody, because this is as much news as Brock saying he's coming back. Let's say fucking last year when Von Miller broke his ankle, And Ian Rappaport was the first one to go on Twitter and say Von Miller's out for the season with ligament tear in his ankle.
Before the team announced
Before
it,
the team announced it.
Before the Broncos said anything.
Before the Broncos say anything. Is now Ian Rappaport a hack journalist because he fucking went above and beyond over the team's head to report that one of the biggest stars in the league is now out for the season? It's the same thing. It's literally the same fucking thing.
And to further illustrate your point, the Denver Broncos are a private organization.
Mm-hmm.
They are owned by the Pat Bowlen family.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, so you could like the same, and I'm only bringing that criteria up because that seemed to be Rogan's main thing.
Yeah,
the UFC is a private company, so by releasing this information, would it be weird, say, if the New York Times sent some journalist out of the blue and then they broke the story, having never covered MMA? Yeah, that would be unusual. You'd be like, what the fuck? But Ariel Helwani is an MMA journalist, and Brock Lesnar coming back to MMA is a story that's a big inside the MMA bubble. Like, that shit is such a story that a lot of times the UFC would trot it out just to get headlines. Yeah. Seriously.
To this day, they
still do. So he is an MMA reporter reporting on MMA news about a big MMA event that he has an exclusive information on exactly in the manner that you just described in the NFL. I don't see the difference in any way.
I don't either.
I cannot imagine the Denver Broncos publicly berating that reporter for doing that, removing his credentials from being able to come to press conferences. Could you imagine such a scenario unfolding? And then trying to shit all over his career. That would be absurd. So I don't believe that Rogan has any argument here whatsoever, and I 100% get why Helwani is riled up about this, because he is in the right. He reported on an event. I don't really see how there's an argument that that's not news for an MMA-specific journalist to report on. In what way is it not news?
In what way isn't it news is the better question, you know?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like...
And yeah,
how on earth would reporting? It doesn't make any sense. And what? So you think that the UFC is going to sell less pay-per-views to UFC 200 because Ariel broke that news to the handful of fucking MMA fanatics who read MMA news sites?
Yeah.
You think now they're going to be like, oh, I'm not buying that pay-per-view because Helwani, I found out about it from him first?
Yeah. No.
Fuck no. The whole appeal of Brock Lesnar, bro, is what? It's his appeal to the masses who aren't in the MMA bubble, who would have no idea that Ariel Helwani broke that story. So it doesn't even make sense on that level.
Yeah.
What harm was done other than Dana's personal anus got hurt? Yeah. I mean, seriously, he's butthurt about it.
Yeah.
Because he wanted to be the guy in front of the cameras breaking the news.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that...
Yeah, there's really there's no merit to this at all. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just a weird situation with Dana. I don't understand what his grudge is like against Ariel.
And for somebody like Rogan, and I see Dana's upset, or I'm sorry, Ariel's upset because he says that this is damaging to his career.
It is, yeah, because it makes it seem like a hack.
Well, yeah, with
it makes it not only that, because it's not even about the outside perspective. It's, let's say I'm Ariel Helwani and you're, I don't know, name any fighter in the UFC, and I tell you, hey, this is off the record, and you report that to the world, I'm going to feel like I can't trust you. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so if this kind of damaging story makes it also look, guys look at him and go, well, shit, I don't want to tell him anything because he'll just report it like he did that shit. But in reality, those are the kind of stories that like are supposed to be like breaking news. Like, you know what I mean? Like that is the point of what a lot of these guys do. Like I know you don't really follow basketball, but guys like Woj and it's the Woj bombs and Shams, like those two guys like are known to be like the people who are like have the fucking finger to the pulse of like who's getting signed and who's getting traded and so on and so forth. So it's like how can you look at what Ariel's doing and not look at that in that same light? You know what I mean? Because in reality he's just on the path of what is going on in the UFC or what is going on in Bellator.
And the big things in MMA, the schedules aren't laid out like it is in basketball. They know who they're playing. It's who's next is the big fucking story.
Yeah, that's
it's
the big
always
story.
The biggest story is who's next.
Yeah. It doesn't make any sense.
It leaves me a little speechless
Yeah.
to think that these guys would parrot that kind of shit. And when you want to talk about an influencer, I mean, is Rogan's podcast even measurable at this fucking point?
No.
I mean, last I heard before the Spotify deal, I mean, he was getting like 90 million downloads a month.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Like, that is fucking crazy.
That's nuts.
When you look at like CNN as an example, like their highest rated show gets like 800,000 viewers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
that's
Rachel
nuts.
Maddow's pulling in 800K viewers on her best night.
Yeah.
Rogan's dropping 90 fucking million downloads a month. Like, get
And
the
he's
fuck out of here.
he's had some crazy numbers from past podcasts just through YouTube.
And people might not take a lot of what he says seriously because he has so many different topics on his show. But when he talks about MMA, everybody figures he knows what the fuck he's saying, right?
Yeah.
So if he says Ariel's doing hack bullshit journalism, then a
Yeah,
whole bunch of
the
people
whole
are going to
fucking
go, oh, so that dude's a joke.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
The dude who just happens to right now be independent, trying to grow his audience.
Mm-hmm.
I get why he's pissed.
But this is where I have to give some pushback to Ariel now, because it all isn't sunshine and rainbows. Ariel also is kind of clout chasing with some of this shit.
Joe Rogan and Brendan are pretty fucking huge.
You know what I'm saying though? Like what you were saying, like he was taking those little jabs where I was just like, he's trying to end this feud, but he also, I feel like he wouldn't mind if it kept going for a little bit.
Yeah, well, here, let's read his finals, his big quote here to Brendan and Joe both. He says, quote, "Leave my name out of your mouth, especially when you want to lie about me. You want to talk about my show being great? You want to talk about me being the 10-time journalist of the year? All you want, but don't lie about me."
Yeah. So, I don't know. There is that element to it.
Then he ends it with, "Felt good to get a few things off my chest today. Much more where that came from, too. Sick of the BS lies. High Road Helwani is no more." So, we got to take it, you're right, with a grain of salt, though, okay? Because he's a known instigator, all right? Aside from being a reporter, which I'll give it, he is also an instigator. He will get fighters on the show and then stir the pot trying to get some shit
I mean, you
started.
kind of have to. That's his job.
And I'm not degrading
Yeah.
that. I'm just saying that's what he does also, is stir the pot and get people riled up about things.
Yeah.
Different from things like breaking the Lesnar story.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's a known instigator. And if he's smart, he would use something like this to his advantage while also being legitimately angry and setting the record straight, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
That's what I'm saying. There's two sides to it, obviously. I think there is. He's getting his get back with that against them, but he's also using it kind of to fucking catapult himself
Do you
forward.
think he wants Joe to invite him on the podcast? Has he ever been on there? I don't think he has,
No,
which is a little surprising.
I don't see why not.
I mean, is that where it's leading? Does he hope if he publicly feuds, maybe he can get on the show?
Maybe, but I just don't see what other than MMA him and Joe would really talk about.
No, it'd have to be the MMA one. Other the things associated with mixed martial arts, the Dana feud.
Yeah. Well, do you think he would even talk about the Dana feud? Like, that's the thing. Is like Joe Rogan doesn't really ever push the issue on feuds and like shit like that. Like, if it's like a fighter to fighter kind of thing, yeah. But like personal feuds, like in the media and shit, he never really ever fuels any fire like that. Like, I've never heard him talk about a celebrity feud or like, something to that level. And he's had every celebrity you can really think of on that fucking show, so I don't know.
Will be interesting to see what unfolds from here.
Yeah.
We've got him calling himself Independent Helwani and High Road Helwani being dead. Oh,
Yeah, and he's heel.
interesting.
He is Helwani. That's his nickname. Like,
Is
he's a
it?
heel, like a wrestling heel.
Oh,
Calls
God.
himself Helwani. Shit, he's got funny branding. That shit's good. I know.
Well, we'll keep an eye on it and see what happens from there.
Mhm.
Now, let's talk about something maybe a little less entertaining, but I think we just have to talk about on the show, and that is UFC Hall of Famer Stefan Bonnar.
Yeah.
For those of you listening who may not have heard, Stefan lives here in Las Vegas, and over the past few days here has posted some very disturbing videos to Instagram of himself first inside a hospital and then second outside that hospital down in Henderson, Nevada, interacting with the police. So if you haven't seen those, that is what we're discussing. And first, I just want to say that I in no way am looking to talk shit about Stefan Bonnar or in this situation. I do not view him in a negative light, and I just want anybody to mistake what I'm saying as criticizing someone who I just think is suffering.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
Those videos, bro, were fucking heartbreaking. I watched those and I felt like shit. I was like, man,
that dude is fucking like, for all he put in to that company to like kind of be where he's at is kind of fucked, and like it really is like a real harsh reminder of what these guys put on the line every time they step in the octagon. You know what I mean? Like, if you really look at someone like Stefan Bonnar, he's had some fucking like absolute wars in the octagon, and now his whole body's given up on him, and he's had his struggles in the past, you know, with like alcohol abuse and stuff like that. And I think a lot of that comes with he's obviously showing some signs of some degenerative like brain issues.
yeah, well, I don't want to play the videos on here. I don't know if we could, but I do want to quote from the first video. He's at Henderson Hospital, and he's in what appears to be the hallway somewhere, and there's
He like cornered himself into some like either like a restroom or a hallway or something.
yeah,
Like that.
and he's recording, and here's a quote from it, just so people can get a flavor of what we're talking about here. It says, quote, "I'm at Henderson Hospital, and they're gonna arrest me. They won't treat me because I got prescribed oxycodone, 10 milligrams, and I got it filled a few weeks ago. Anyway, last week when I broke my vertebrae from wrestling off the top rope," then he goes into how he got prescribed and filled his prescription, and then he tried to get another prescription, and now they're refusing him treatment. And in that video,
He looks fucking awful.
he does not look good,
Yeah.
and he does not sound good. You can
He sounds fucked up. Like you
hear
can-
the
yeah.
anguish in his voice. You can hear that he is not in the
There.
right frame of
Yeah.
mind
Yeah.
in the voice. It's very disturbing. And then it goes on from there. And I don't want to. Honestly, that shit made me so sad. I don't want to watch it again.
Yeah. Well, and
But
you know what? Shit like this, when shit like this happens, man. Like, if you want to really look at it from any other like perspective, in like fighting, there's been like sad stories like this for years, and you would think that this kind of shit that happens like this would get guys to maybe unionize, but I don't understand. If this can't do it, I don't know what else would. Because like there's too many guys who have been, not even just from the UFC and like boxing and all kinds of other combat sports, where when the lights don't shine anymore and you're not fucking, you know, champion of the world or fighting for in front of fucking 20,000 people, like that, this is the sad reality of what a lot of these guys are left with.
which is a lot of pain. Like it seemed from there like he wouldn't leave because he wanted treatment, so they called the police on him. And so he goes outside, and then he begins recording another video, which he states in the video he's recording because he doesn't want to get assaulted again, I do believe he said, by the police. He feels if he's recording, he'll be safe, right? Then here's one of the cops asks him to sit down and calm down a little bit. And here's another quote, and this is the last one I'll read here, but this kind of outlines the whole situation for people because he gives a little bit more info in this. You can see the cop on the video says, will you sit down? And he's screaming this response. But he says, "I can't sit, dumb fuck. My back's broken. I'm Stefan Bonnar. I'm a UFC Hall of Famer. I don't have my license on me or my debit card. You know why? Because the pharmacist at CVS forgot to give it back to me. You know when? When she was telling me I couldn't get my 7.5 milligram Norcos because, guess why? I recently had 10 milligrams of oxys filled. So they could only give me tramadol. The tramadol is awful. It doesn't work. And the oxycodone, 10 milligrams, are all gone. So finally I came to an emergency room after suffering with a fractured lumbar vertebrae, doctor." And then at that point in the video, he turns around and he's yelling at the doctors that are standing outside watching. He said, "After finally suffering with a fractured lumbar vertebrae, doctor, for a week."
Yeah.
And then it goes on from there. But I mean,
Yeah. there's a mixture of things going on here, obviously. Like,
Look, I have a family member, and I'm only going to illustrate this because for those of you that are just like, oh, and I've seen some of this in the comments
Yeah.
on MMA News. I said, oh, he's just a pill junkie. Fuck him. Let him go to detox.
mm,
Motherfucker, I don't
not if he has a
believe
broken
that.
vertebrae.
There's a massive difference
Yeah.
between taking pills to get high and becoming a junkie and living with extreme pain where you are prescribed extreme pain medication for long periods of time where after a while that fucking shit doesn't work.
Yeah.
And then the prescriptions get higher. And then they get higher. I've got a family member that's taking so much fucking morphine that if I took that dose, I would fucking die.
Yeah.
Okay?
That's what
And
happens
she's-
too, is like freaking, that's what happens with like anxiety medication, all that same shit. It all goes like dose to the dose to the dose to the dose because
Right.
your body naturally tries to fucking, combat it and fucking, it gives you this same thing with anything, alcohol, fucking, even weed, like fucking, there's a fucking a body reaction where your tolerance gets to a level where pain keeps rising, but your tolerance is also rising from the medications you're taking, and fucking you're in a situation where, and I don't know, because this one's tough for me because I agree with you. It's a very sad situation, like the pain he's in and stuff like that. But he's also kind of a lost guy as of late. Like, you know what I
Well,
mean?
he's
Like,
clearly suffering some other issues.
Absolutely.
Which you cannot miss that fact if you watch those two videos.
well, I also
Like-
want to just kind of fucking just put this out there a bit as well. He also has been a part of that whole group of guys who was centering themselves around that Joshua Fabia coach, like him and Diego. Like all those videos of him yelling at UFC people and shit were all
Yeah.
filmed by fucking Stefan Bonnar.
That's another disturbing thing that kind of isn't in the press. Is right.
Mhm.
Those famous videos that led to Diego's exit
Yeah.
were filmed by Stefan Bonnar. And I haven't heard of any break between Stefan and Fabia. And that guy's a fucking leech
Yeah.
and a parasite.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, as much as he deserves to be, I do not believe Stefan Bonner's a wealthy man. I mean, if you're
It'd be tough.
44 and in pain and you're taking off-brand pro wrestling gigs, okay?
Yeah.
We're not. He wasn't at SummerSlam 2 weeks ago, dog,
No,
competing, was he?
no.
Whatever shit he's talking about was so far off the radar, even as MMA fans, we are not hearing that he's showing
Yeah,
up in this. Okay?
Exactly.
Like, I
And-
mean, he's known around Vegas.
Yeah.
He's not a fucking baller, dude. He's not a millionaire. He's not sitting on all this cash.
Well, and
he should be.
It does seem that he's struggled with like alcoholism too, because a year and a half ago, or maybe 2 years ago, something like that, that he had a very similar story where, and I think he's talking this whole thing where he's talking about, I don't want to get my ass kicked again by the cops, is goes back to that because he had like a situation where he fell asleep in his car on the freeway or something like that, and they couldn't wake him up, so they bashed his window in, and he fucking fight or flight mode and got up
Yeah.
and started trying to fight the cops and got beat up by the cops. So like
Yeah.
there's a troubled past and a troubled kind of like road that has kind of got him here, but I do think a lot of it is rooted in the trauma and fucking brain injuries that he has possibly dealt with from his fighting career,
It's yeah, he's had his third DUI here. The one you're talking about was his third.
Yeah.
Um,
Was it 2018? It says 3 years ago.
yeah, and I mean, I don't know this. This is my opinion. Okay,
Yeah.
just from the alcohol abuse can also come from when you're living with high amounts of fucking pain.
That too, yeah. That Don
Like-
Fry said the same shit too. The
And-
Don Fry fucking
Dude, it's so easy for all these armchair motherfucking internet warriors to
Oh, yeah.
criticize that shit when you haven't experienced that kind of
Yeah,
pain. I have
yeah.
watched a family member lose friends because they think she's some sort of like pill junkie.
yeah.
Okay,
But in reality,
when
there's
they
some
have
shit ton of
no
pain.
idea that
Yeah.
if she wasn't, and people like Steph, if they have so much fucking pain, bro, that they'll probably shoot themselves in the goddamn head if they're not on that fucking medication because
Yeah.
you can't live life that way.
Yeah.
You can't fucking live in excruciating pain day in and day out. You fucking can't do it.
And not only that is like is there's no real help if he is hurting for money.
No, he has no
And-
union to fall
Well,
back
not only
on.
that, but take it even further than that. Like I have friends who are fighters. My brothers have friends who are fighters, and one of my brother's friends has kids and all that, and he has to get a regular job so he can have health insurance because all these other health insurance companies won't cover you if your fucking occupation is a fighter.
Of course.
You know, you're such a high risk that even if they are willing to fucking cover you, it's at such a ridiculous premium. There's no,
I know, shit,
there's
bro.
no, there's
You-
no helping you. You know.
I raised a fucking kid on my own, and I lost all our health insurance when Obama came in with that fucking Obamacare bullshit because it got so goddamn expensive. I couldn't afford it anymore, and I'm a healthy dude. I'm not high risk. Let alone, I can't imagine what the premium rates would be if you're in a crazy occupation like that. So I'm not surprised at all to hear they won't even do it.
Yeah. So
And
like
no one wants to talk about that shit because the union would fix that shit
It would.
because they would have group plans at least. They'd have a group
Mhm.
buy at the
Yeah.
goddamn bare minimum, you know.
hmm
And this is where people like Stefan Bonnar, and if you're listening to this broadcast and maybe you've heard of that name but you don't understand, like, this dude could not be more significant for the UFC.
Oh yeah.
He is one half of the greatest UFC fight of all time.
It's not even that it's the greatest
well,
UFC
I don't mean by
fight of all
necessarily
time.
like
It
technical
is the
shit,
UFC
but I mean it's
fight.
the fight that saved the UFC.
Yeah, it is the fight that put the UFC on the map.
Yes, everybody, like, the UFC was on the way out the door, and that
Yeah.
fight went fucking viral as it was happening. It was one of the first things
I was
that
gonna
could,
say,
like, go
it went viral before going viral
Yeah.
was a thing.
Exactly. People were calling motherfuckers up on the phone and being like,
Yeah.
"Are you watching this shit on Spike TV with these fucking two guys?"
Yeah.
We're talking about the Forrest Griffin, Stefan Bonnar, the Ultimate Fighter Season 1 fight, which literally saw its audience like triple during the broadcast because
Yeah.
of word of mouth.
Yeah.
And it became the thing that, like, saved the UFC
Saved
from
the
going out of
UFC,
business
yeah.
and gave them this launching pad to where they are now. And it's in the Hall of Fame at the UFC. And he comes from an era where these guys, we think they're underpaid now.
Yeah, they were getting paid jack shit then.
That shit's embarrassing when you look at it now. He probably fought for a couple $1,000s at one point, dude.
I agree and disagree actually because there also was opportunity for way more sponsorships.
Well, this is
than,
true. I forget.
than there is now.
They had the sponsorship money. Yeah,
Because-
that was a big deal. That's why they were willing to fight for pennies so much. 'Cause
Yeah. So yeah, like their fight purses weren't shit, but a lot of guys were making good promotional money.
that's very true. And after that fight, he probably got some good
I hope
sponsorship
so,
deals.
shit.
But the point is, it's not like he banked millions of dollars
Yeah.
and squandered his
Yeah.
money. Because that's the other thing I hear assholes say. They'll be like, "Well, it's not. Well, so we can't manage his money." Motherfucker, he didn't have much money, dog.
He didn't have much money to begin with.
What are you talking about? It's not like he's paid. It's not like he got $200,000 per fight. Get the fuck
Yeah.
out of here.
And you wonder why all these guys who are fucking older, like fighters, are coming out of the woodwork to fight again. You know, because like after fight life is not fucking easy. You know, like most.
For all the criticism and shit we throw away, why the hell you think fucking Tyron Woodley agreed to fight Jake Paul ultimately?
Yeah.
It was that paycheck, man. He's 39 fucking years old. His career's shot in MMA, basically, unless he wants to go down the lower level shits. He never caught on as being super popular. You know what I mean? It's not like he's some mega endorsement deal. If he goes over
Yeah.
to Bellator, he's not going to cash in millions because he's with Gatorade or some shit.
Yeah.
You know, even now, like Misha Tate just got paid $200K and said like she pocketed like four G's off
yeah.
that by the time shit was all paid for.
Yeah. So like, this kind of shit is just sad in the end. Like, there needs to be a union for more than just pay, and this kind of stuff proves.
And Stefan Bonnar needs more than just to go to a detox center. How does that? So then what do you do with the pain after that? Like, that's where this family member I have is at right now. Like, she's on forced reduction because the Trump administration went heavy on cracking down on all the quote unquote abuse. But the problem with that is legitimate users got wound up in this net
Yeah.
where they're forced off medication, right? And like, it's not like the pain goes away.
Yeah.
Like, you come off the pills and
Well,
and then
that's the thing too. Is that's what they do to you? Is like when your insurance can't afford the surgery, you just get pilled up till they
Right.
fucking can't do it anymore.
And I do understand there's people who have minor pains that are probably
Yeah.
abusing the system, but there are also people who have pain that they can't possibly live with, which
Yeah.
is why they were prescribed that shit to begin with.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is like if you are ever prescribed that kind of shit, there's obviously something serious going on because it's fucking
It's sad.
It's just sad.
And there needs to be a net for guys. And we need to do something. And by we, I mean, I'm just lumping us in the MMA community. But fighters need to do something where they have a net. You fuckers got to get together and organize. Jesus fucking Christ. How many sob stories do you got to see?
For real. This was just like Spencer Fisher, right? Isn't that what it was?
Yep, Spencer Fisher.
Not Spencer Fisher. What the fuck is his name? Fuck, it's a couple weeks ago. Either way.
The
doesn't matter.
CTE?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Fisher King. It is Spencer.
Was it?
I thought it was Spencer.
I don't think so.
Now we're all fucking
Now we're
baked. And
high.
we weren't planning
How
on
dare we-
talking
yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know who you're talking about. I think it's Spencer the King Fisher. But we're talking about the fighter who is literally. There's an article on Bloody Elbow. It's still up on there. You can go find it. Who's his CTE is terrible. He's losing time, all kinds of things, and he's stuck with no money.
Yeah.
And now he can't even barely run the gym. That was the one thing he could do, based kind of off of his name and his skill set.
Yeah, it is Spencer Fisher. Holy
Okay.
shit, I thought of that when I was high. Can I get a round of applause?
Dude, I remember distinctly watching his fights before I moved out here to Vegas. That dude always put on a good show, man.
Yeah.
But these guys, they get caught later in life. And it's
Same thing with like football players. It's just like it's all those same things that were reasons why there were like, and I don't really know if there is. That's the problem though here though is like, obviously on the insurance side and the care side, the union makes sense, but like there's really nothing you can. There's nothing really wrong the UFC is doing. You know what I mean? Like, it's not really the UFC's fault in the fact of, like, them getting their bodies, like, fucked up in the end. Because, like, at the end of the day, that's kind of what you're signing up for. The same thing is, like, there's been so many sad stories from the NFL and, like, shit like that with guys having brain injuries, like, in the same way that a lot of these guys in fighting and mixed martial arts and all combat sports have. And so it's, like, it's a weird line you have to tote because, like, at the same time, this is what they're signing up for, but this is the sad reality of what they're signing up for. It's not it's what's implied but never said. You know what I mean? Like, everyone wants to be champion of the world. Everyone wants to, win the fights in front of thousands of people and have, articles written about them and all that shit. But at the end of the day, there's a price that every single one of these guys pay that people don't fucking realize. And stories like this makes you realize the fucking price is sometimes not worth the pudding. And I feel like with this fucking story alone, like, that's kind of how I feel about it,
You're right. It's not the UFC's fault. Just like the NFL, it's not their job to provide the players' union. These are outside organizations.
Well, not even that. I'm just talking about like the actual physical thing that you are doing. Like, you are going to go ram your fucking head into another person's body who's trying to run to the end zone for fucking 50 plays. And what happens after that is kind of, we don't know. Sorry. And that's kind of the same thing in fighting. It's like, you're going to go in there, stand in front of a guy for 5-minute rounds, and you're going to punch each other till one of you is unconscious or tap each other out. And what happens after that is sorry, but it's on you. And that's literally the fucking, that's what happens at the end of it. The fucking end of the story. Like,
and
I don't
disagree with that. But the major difference is, I mean, what's the league minimum in the NFL right now?
That's true.
I mean, when you get there, at least you know. I mean, what medical benefits do they have for life, possibly included in their deals? I don't know, but I know it's a hell of more than the UFC fighter who gets underpaid and has jack shit. Yeah. Well, and you're right. It's not the UFC's job to provide them with a union. And that's what I was saying. Like, you can't get mad at the UFC. What they're not. It's not their job to provide health insurance, dude. It's the fighter's job to get organized and somebody to come in and organize it. And the fact is, there's been fucking multiple times they've tried, and motherfuckers won't sign it.
Yeah. Because it turns into a blacklist.
It makes me not even want to be a fan sometimes.
But it does. You know what I mean, though? Like, honestly, like, it turns into like kind of a blacklist because it's like,
in the UFC
it's
does
like,
do
oh,
shitty shit.
it's like, yeah, it's like, oh, so yeah, you want to do this and this and that. Like, well, why didn't you just come to us about it? Why are you going to other people and spreading, this is where that whole old boys club of the UFC kind of still there. It's still there.
Yeah.
Like it Dana and all them, and this kind of ties into the Ariel story too. They're the private company and the people, if who was it? Not Lauren Murphy. Who the fuck was it? Leslie Smith.
Oh, Leslie Smith.
If Leslie Smith goes and starts a fucking union and she's telling people how much she's making 100%, and she's telling other people about how we do things here, then she can't be trusted. And that's just not how you run a fucking. You can't run a fucking major sporting organization like this forever. Like eventually, the shit is gonna hit the fan in one way or another, and I don't know
Well,
how
it's-
or when it will happen. But it's like these kind of things that like of how this like kind of monopolizing, not only the like trying to monopolize MMA was really what they try to
Yeah.
do, and I get it. That's kind of the idea of it, but you have to kind of look into how the fuck they're running that company at some point.
Well, they're starting to get cracks.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, Justin Gaethje refusing to fight Michael Chandler for a 5-round fight
Yeah.
due to pay,
Mm.
basically.
And I agree with him too.
He's getting paid the same for a 5-rounder versus a 3-rounder.
Yeah.
Save the 5-rounders for championship at this point.
Well,
You've got Sean O'Malley.
even a 5-round fight for a championship makes no fucking sense to me. Like, what is the point of 2 more rounds? Like, I get
don't
it.
even
I
know.
get it. It's cool. It's like, oh yeah, it's like this, that, and the other. But in reality, like, why do you have to fight a 5-round fight? Like, it does nothing for you. It does nothing.
It just wears your fighters down quite a bit more.
Yeah.
But O'Malley says he's not going to fight ranked guys until he gets a better contract because he gets paid the same. That's why he turned down the Frankie Edgar fight.
Which I think would have been a banger.
Oh no, I want to see. I'll watch 5 rounds of Chandler versus Gaethje all day.
Yeah.
But I respect the hell out of you for saying
Yeah,
no, because
standing
somebody
their
needs to
ground.
do something here.
Mm-hmm.
So, and because the end result is Stefan Bonnar, is
Diego Sanchez.
Diego
fucking-
Sanchez, it's
yeah.
fucking Spencer Fisher.
Yeah. And countless other guys in boxing.
Yeah, and what about
fucking-
these lower level guys that never even get that much recognition?
Yeah, exactly. They're left with nothing at all.
Something's
That's
got to
sad.
change, brother.
And it's not just the UFC, too. Take the UFC out of it. This is fighters in general. Like, in
Yeah,
general.
the union wouldn't be. I mean, they could unionize outside of the UFC.
That's what I'm saying. Completely
There's nothing-
unionized outside the
I
UFC.
don't
And the
know why that-
UFC could not do a goddamn thing about it.
I don't think Bellator is nearly as anti-union.
I think they are, too, because the fucking...
UFC is, but I don't know.
I don't know.
I could be talking out of my ass.
Every company's ran different. I'll just go with that.
Well, let's shift into the UFC Fight Night and the Darren Till topic
Mm-hmm.
to get into a little bit more better instead of depressing
Yeah.
topics.
Yeah,
Let's fire up a bowl here, and we just had. I've lost count of how many UFC Vegas.
I think it was
is.
39.
For some reason, this one started early in the day, so I missed a lot of it. But let's start with a couple of fights that we want to discuss from the Brunson Till UFC Fight Night event, which will lead, of course, into the discussion about Darren Till that we referenced in the beginning of the show.
Mm-hmm. So where I want to start is Paddy Pimblett. Makes his UFC debut. Comes in.
We
A
had him
highly
fighting
touted.
Luigi Venturamini.
Yeah, highly touted prospect in
Yeah, he's from King of the Cage
Nah,
over there in Europe.
Cage. Is it King of the
Or is it Cage Warriors?
Cage Warriors? Yeah,
It's one of the two.
yeah. He's got a very McGregor-esque vibe about him.
He does. That haircut trips me out. There's
It
like
does.
some shit out of the 60s.
Dude,
Beatles
He
like a
looks funny, dude.
3-year-old would wear.
Yeah.
I don't even know. But he's quite the striker. I mean, he wins with a flashy TKO.
He's pretty solid everywhere too. He has a lot of like
He's known
submission
as a
wins.
grappler.
Yeah, like he faced adversity too. He kind of got rocked at the beginning.
He did. He came in swinging wild against Luigi.
Yeah, and
Took a few shots to the dome, fired back in a flurry. Nice
Yeah.
straight 1-2 punches. I
Yeah.
liked him. Came a flying knee attempt.
yeah,
But he gets that first round TKO at the 425 mark. Pretty quick.
in a weight class that just isn't lacking any stars. I'll tell you that.
I gotta tell you, I mean, I've heard of the kid for a while,
Yeah.
but honestly, I thought he was a bantam. I was
Really?
really surprised when
Yeah, he's a
I
lightweight.
see he's a lightweight. I was like, oh shit, okay,
I think he used to be a featherweight though.
possibly, but he's coming into a Shark Tank there.
Oh yeah, lightweight man. There's some fucking tough guys. Even the guys coming up, because then you think about a guy like him and Terrence McKinney fighting. That like they were going back and forth on social media before and after. So like, there's just so many sharks at 55. Like even that makes sense because even though they're both prospects, like if they don't fight each other, they're just gonna fight another prospect. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like fuck. Like 155 is such a fucking Shark Tank, and for fucking Gaethje to say what he said last week pissed me off so bad that ever since Khabib left, the weight class has been a joke. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me, dude? Like this whole weight class is just filled with. I think it's by far the most talented weight class in mixed martial arts.
Yeah, he's just trying to come up with reasons why he's been inactive.
Yeah, but still, you know what I mean? That's a slap to the face, to even yourself. Like you're like talking down your own like level of opponents that you're gonna potentially have. You know?
Well, Patty, his record goes up to 17-3 now, and he makes quite a big statement. Do you think they're going to match him up with someone in the bottom 15 already?
You think already?
Or do you think they'll just kind of ease him along?
Hmm.
Because he does have, some star power here.
He's got a lot of fights already.
He's got 20 fights in his career. He's been a title holder in a smaller organization.
I think he was a double belt winner too.
I do believe that's correct. The UFC tends to want to strike when the iron is hot
Yeah.
when it comes to fame.
Fuck it, throw him to the wolves and see what happens. That's like really when you have these guys who are a little bit more like experienced. Sometimes you have to do that because I don't know how old he is, but
He's
if
a
he's
youngster.
is he young? Let's see. I need to see this. How old he is? Click on his name.
I think he was talking some shit about Tony Ferguson.
Really? I wouldn't want to see that happen to Tony Ferguson.
Of course, UFC doesn't give us that statistic.
His name?
Oh, his age.
Just kidding.
Why would UFC make that easy to find?
We'll fill this.
I don't know, dude. I'm tired of
with-
looking for it. It's too much
Elevator
silence.
music.
He's in his 20s, though. He's not
Oh,
that
he's in
old.
his 20s? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. Like I said, there's no bad fights at 55. I'll take them all. You can fight whoever next. Most of these guys, there's some fucking good fights, man.
All right. Well, other fights on the card I don't really feel like talking about, so let's bounce up to the main
Hold on,
event.
one more guy. Got to
Who?
talk about Tom Aspinall. What
Well,
he
okay,
did,
Tom Aspinall at
what
heavyweight
he
did
did
make
is
a statement.
fucking insane. He has like he's just like light years ahead of people on the feet. Like,
He fought Sergey Spivak at
Yeah.
heavyweight in the co-main event.
mhm.
KO'd him at 230 around 1.
But like I just feel like every fight he's been in the UFC so far, I feel like he's just like ahead in like his his ability to get in and out is almost like he's like a fucking lightweight sometimes. Like,
He's
it's
got really
crazy.
nice hands, and he moves real well.
Mhm.
He's saying he doesn't want to fight anybody currently.
Yeah,
too
he said he's
crazy
gonna
ranked.
fight. He said if I'm 12, I'll fight whoever's 11. Like,
Right.
okay.
I admire that maybe a little bit. He wants to get his feet a little wetter before jumping into the pool.
But in reality, I do think he's ready. Like,
Shit, he's probably wanting to stick around and dick around at lower ranked guys because why would you try to fight somebody that's going to get you a title shot right now, Paul, in the heavyweight division?
yeah, that too. That
Because
too.
there's a incredible backlog for championship fights at heavyweight.
But
right
I
now.
wouldn't mind
A
seeing him.
ridiculous backlog.
Yeah, but I wouldn't mind seeing him fight somebody like maybe like a fucking like a Curtis Blades or something, like just to like see where he's at. You know what I mean? Because people don't realize, but he's a real great striker, but he has been doing jiu-jitsu since he was 12 years old.
Yes, I don't think he'll do that because he goes and beats a Curtis Blades and they'll be like, oh, title shot next. And after who? Jones, Stipe, Gain, Gone, whatever the fuck his name is.
True.
I mean, that's like a year of already booked title fights.
Maybe more than that.
Yeah, maybe more. That's if we can pop one off every 90 days. We still can't get the heavyweight title. You notice that fight hasn't been made yet, right?
Yeah.
Hmm.
If I'm fucking Francis, I'm like fuck you. I make it
Francis's
whenever I
manager just
want.
came out and said, we want the Jones fight.
Yeah. Like they're trying to force him into some kind of situation where they have to pretend like Jones doesn't matter. But we know, everyone knows that everybody in every camp wants them to just fucking pay Jones and move it forward.
So Aspinall might want to stick with guys he knows he can beat, get a paycheck, and wait to see what
Maybe
happens.
like a
before he
Jairzinho
fights a
Rosenstrike
contender.
or something.
What's he ranked these days? He's in top 8 still, right? Top 10.
Yeah, I'm thinking he's maybe top 10, maybe 7.
I bet he goes more in the lines of a like the Aussie
Tuivasa.
Tai Tuivasa.
I think they're boys though.
Somewhere in that range, maybe a lower ranked. Yeah, just what he said, 10-12. But yeah, you're right. This is a good fight. He looks sharp.
Sharp as fuck.
I'm definitely interested in what's next.
And for people who don't know, he is one of Tyson Fury's main training partners.
That's right.
So you know his freaking ability to handle a fucking. That's why like I feel like he's got a future because a lot of these guys are worried about standing with someone who like Ngannou on the feet like for however long. He stands in front
He's
of
not
fucking
gonna be.
Tyson Fury and fucking trades with him all the time. You don't think you think he's worried about someone who's actually smaller than Tyson Fury?
Yeah, no, he's not.
Because Francis is 6'9", fucking Fury is 6'9", 230.
There's few men on earth
285
bigger
maybe,
than
sorry.
Tyson Fury.
Yeah.
Like Ngannou looks big until you stand him next to Tyson Fury, and then
Yeah.
you're like, oh,
Yeah.
oh, okay. And Tyson ain't even muscular. It's weird.
He's not. He's just a fucking
But he's
humongous
just
person.
gigantic.
Yeah.
So yeah, the main event: Derek Brunson, Darren Till. Darren Till's coming out party. You know, he's going to come out here. He's going to smoke Derek. He's going to get that title shot.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've been told kind of not to pay attention to his record, even though I was bringing it up last week. It was getting questionable over his last few fights.
Yeah.
But then what happens is he gets completely dominated and then subbed by Derek Brunson.
Yeah.
Round 3.
What a weird fight. What a weird fight. So what's that? 1-4 in his last 5, huh?
Yeah, in his last 5 fights, he won a split decision over Kevin Gastelum in 2019. And he went on a loss. I mean, he lost to Woodley.
Woodley,
since then,
shit.
You know, so his best win to date is a decision unanimous over Stephen Thompson in May of 2018.
I'm gonna go with. Here's the thing, though. I do want to sit. I know that you're about to go pretty hard on Darren Till, so I do.
Wait, before you do that, I'm just saying, like, if we look at his record.
That's what I was just gonna say. I'm literally.
There's Cerrone and Thompson, and then who are these other people?
Yeah.
Do you know any? Bojan Verkovec, Jason Arari, Nicholas Dalby was a draw. Wendell de Oliveira. I mean,
Yeah.
these were all fights in Brazil and they were probably tough fights because Brazil's filled with tough fighters.
But here's what I do want to say, though. His quality of opponent is similar to a guy like him. Him and Kelvin Gastelum are on very similar paths. I feel like right now they are both still pretty fucking good, and I do think if you put Darren Till against anybody outside of the top 15, he'll smoke him. And
You mean like Derek Brunson?
Derek Brunson's not out of the 15.
Okay,
I'm
not
saying
the top 15.
no.
Yeah,
Derek
unranked
Brunson's
fighter.
talking about getting a fucking title shot next week. I'm talking about if you took Darren Till and you put him back in, let's just say, erase these fights that he had at 185 and just go with, like, let's say instead of putting him straight into the top 15 like they did, they made him work his way up through middleweight. I think he would have definitely built some wins up.
I don't think that really Derek Brunson deserves a title shot after this, and I think if Adesanya hadn't whooped everybody's ass along the way, we wouldn't even be talking about it. because he kind of suffers from the exact same problem that Darren Till has, which is what I think leads to my argument that I'm sorry, I don't mean anything personal. I like the guy, but Darren Till has been highly fucking overrated. Every time he's faced stiff competition, he's gotten beat, just like Derek Brunson. Let's look at Derek Brunson's. He's won 5 in a row. He just beat Darren Till. Prior to that, Kevin Holland, up and comer. Edmund Shabazian, up and comer. Ian Heinz, up and comer. Elias Thorogood, okay,
he's
fighter.
out of the UFC.
Right. Then he lost to Adesanya, lost to Jacare, lost to Anderson Silva, lost to Robert Whittaker.
Yeah.
He fights the top tier guys, he loses. He's a guy that if you beat him, then suddenly you're taken more seriously. He's a good fighter. But like Adesanya, right, on his come up, he was like, oh, Brunson's a tough test, and he beats him, and everybody's like, shit.
Yeah.
You know, Till was like, oh, he could right this whole ship of these last 3 losses if he just beat Derek Brunson, and we're going to take you seriously.
Yeah.
And instead, Derek Brunson, who, sorry, he's lost to all the top tier guys he's fought, he goes on and dominates the guy.
Yeah. I just didn't really see any.
I think he's been overrated, dude. He just has, in my opinion.
Well, yeah. I'm not saying that he's not overrated. I'm just saying that he's not a lost cause.
I mean, his losses now are, it's not even just against top tier. I don't consider George Masvidal a top tier fighter, and he fucking KO'd him.
That's an iffy fight, though. That's a coin flip because he almost fucking knocked George out in the first minute.
It's
also,
true.
like that's the thing. This
It's
is the part of Darren Till's fucking resume you do have to look into. Is yes, he's lost these fights, but all in weird fucking ways. Like Masvidal almost has him knocked out in the first minute. Gets kicked in the nuts, it gets turned around, and then fucking he gets KO'd flatline. And then even the Kelvin Gastelum fight, like that was a real close fight where he could have lost or won, but it was competitive the whole way. There was no glaring discrepancy in skills, is what I'm saying. And then you go to the next one, you go to the Robert Whittaker fight. Robert Whittaker and him was a very high level chess match between two guys where they both rocked each other in that 5-round fight. And so I do think that like when you look at like his whole resume, you do have to you have to watch the fights because I don't think he's overrated. I just think he's fought really high level opponents that you can win or lose against on any given night.
I don't know. I'll take his as a counterpoint to that. What I said earlier, his best win was against Stephen Thompson, which was the decision. But let's also remember he missed weight, weighed in at 175 basically for that fight, and it was done at a catch weight. And I happen to think that is a huge advantage when a fighter misses weight. The fighter who missed and came in heavy almost always wins. It's a really sick percentage.
That was such a high level fight, though. Like that was every fan couldn't really appreciate that fight, because it was so much feints and fucking. That's kind of how him and Whittaker was too. Like there's these weird chess matches that Darren Till's willing to get into where he'll fucking sit back and just watch you work, and then once he watches you work, then he'll start working, and like he'll do this weird thing where he goes back and forth with people, and he did it against Gastelum too. The reason that was a split decision is because the whole first round he kind of let Gastelum throw what he had at him, and then waited, and then second round and third round he grappled him up on the fence and went after all his weaknesses, and I feel like that's kind of how he fights, and I do think in the Brunson fight, a big part of his game plan was at the beginning he was chasing Brunson, and whether anybody wants to say it or not, Derek Brunson has fucking garbage gas tank, bro. Like in the second round, he's huffing and puffing already. He took 6 shots. He's huffing and puffing. He was like that in Kevin Holland fight. He's like that in all his fights. Like he has this weird tendency where he does this like the same motion every time. That's why I don't think Derek Brunson has any chance to beat Adesanya. Like literally, he's the same fucking guy who fought Adesanya 3 years ago. People are saying he's not because he has this 5-fight win streak in a row. But if you really go back and watch the tape, you'll see it's the same setup all day long. he does that fucking left hook to or uppercut combo to close the distance, and if he can't land, he turns it into a body lock or a double leg. And then he puts you on the ground, he tries to drop elbows, and he tries to. I'll give him that. His ground and pound, his ability to ground and pound has gotten better. But like as far as like his stand up is fucking, it's nowhere near anybody like a Robert Whitaker or a fucking Israel Adesanya.
100%.
Like I just don't think he has any chance against those top two guys, and
No.
I don't think he deserves a title shot next. I think him and Whitaker actually should run it next and give Kennedy the shot.
Well, that's the thing. The most impressive thing about his win streak is that it's at 5.
Yeah.
Like, it's not, I mean, I'm sorry, I like Kevin Holland, but he was completely unranked as far as I know coming in. I mean, yeah, that was a replacement fight or whatever. It is what it is, though. And Darren Till, you can be like, well, he's a high-level fighter. Well, yeah, but he's also lost now 4 out of his last 5. So how, I'm just saying.
And then you could look at even the Edmund Shabazian win. Edmund Shabazian was a prospect who literally no one had ever seen really
Very
grapple
well.
in the cage, you know, and
And
then
it was-
right away that's what would glare. And same thing with Kevin Holland.
Yeah.
Like he fights all these strikers that everyone says can't grapple, and then he grapples them, and everyone's surprised that he wins. No, I'm not fucking surprised. That's
No,
what
they
he's
moved
supposed to
Shabazian
do.
way too close, too soon into that fight.
And we've seen that with his
Yeah.
last fight too.
Yeah, absolutely. So to just round it out, I'm going to go with this is just a matter of opinion. Nobody's right or wrong, but yeah, I think he just came in slightly overrated. It doesn't mean that I think he sucks. I don't think his career's over. I think he should probably go back down to welterweight, though.
I was just gonna say, what do you think? Like, you think 85 is just a bad spot for him?
I do.
You think it's more of like a physical thing or just the level of playing field?
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, he's 6 feet tall, which isn't too. It's not crazy big even at welterweight. I mean, you got a title shot down there. But Brunson just seemed a lot stronger than him, even though Till looked big in the cage.
Yeah.
But Brunson just seemed stronger. Like when he got on top of him, Till really couldn't do shit. And
That shit drives me crazy.
you know, I don't understand it, but I don't think he has anything left. How many are you going to keep losing to all the top tier guys at 85? And they're not just going to keep feeding you those guys. He's got to drop. That's all I see.
I definitely think the competition level is definitely gonna drop for him. I do think someone fucking, I don't know, man, because like 85 is another one where it's like there's a style in which you could fight if you fight at 185 that would definitely help you, because there's a lot of strikers and there's not a lot of wrestlers, and you see a lot of the guys who wrestle at 185 pounds have a lot of success in there. Because a lot of guys, I don't know why, but there's not a lot of wrestlers in the division. Like overall, it's a lot of strikers in the top 15.
The best one reigning at the top. His takedown defense has gotten pretty sporty here. I don't
Mhm.
think too many wrestlers are going to come along and dethrone Adesanya.
Well, shit, how many times did he stuff Brunson? What, like 4 times the first time they fought?
Brunson did get him down, but he didn't really do
Got it
anything
right
with
back
it.
up.
Yeah. I remember it was like a big deal because it was one of the few times outside of the Marvin Vettori fight that Adesanya had been down.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing too. Is he showed in that Marvin Vettori fight that if you outweigh him by fucking 40 pounds, you can take him down. But when he's on a level playing field size wise, it's not going to be a
Or you
fucking
mean the Jan?
No, I'm
Blachowicz
saying
fight?
from the Jan Blachowicz to the Marvin
Oh,
Vettori
to
fight.
the Vettori fight
Yeah,
next.
he showed
I
showed
gotcha.
that you have to outweigh him or physically have more strength than him to really have that effect. He's not, because I do think, I know this is no complete conversation we didn't plan on having, but Israel Adesanya, I do think, got a lot of flack after the fucking Jan Blachowicz fight, and people kind of were saying that, oh, well, that's the formula, you just take him down, and he can't really do anything.
Well, there was a massive size difference there.
I think that's where I'm saying that.
And that was Adesanya's fault. He went out and said he wasn't going to gain any
Yeah.
weight and blah, blah, blah. And,
Yeah.
well, now look. Sorry, bro.
But I do think he reasserted his dominance to not get taken down by someone like Vettori, who pretty
Yeah, he
much
didn't-
took
he didn't
down
get
everybody
taken
in the
down,
division
yeah.
all the way on his way up to the title.
Well,
So
we'll see how this plays out here. But
yeah,
best of luck to Darren Till. Wish him well in his next fight. I'd like to see
he
it.
did look a little fat.
you
You're
know.
right.
I'd like to see it down at welterweight. Maybe he can get that win back against Masvidal or something.
Run it back.
Who knows? I know Masvidal's trying to talk about title contention again here recently, which I think is.
I heard him
silly.
yesterday say that if Nick Diaz beats fucking Robbie, that he wants to fight Nick Diaz.
I'm sure he does. That wouldn't be a bad fight though, but
I would love it. I'd be there. I'd have to be there if that fight happened.
yeah, that would be pretty exciting if Nick looks good.
That's for the next show.
Well, that wraps the show for today, my friend.
Yep.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts from these days, from Amazon to Spotify and Google and everything in between, including videos up on YouTube if video is your thing. We got all those links and all that information in one spot.
SWAT MMA.com, where you can head over there, click the gear button, and support the podcast. And follow us on Instagram at SWAT MMA Podcast.
Thanks, everybody. Peace. Later.